Hi everyone. So today I want to talk about the beautiful conjunction between Juno and the Sun at 28 45 Gemini. And I'll talk about this a little bit more later. Juno found me a few years ago during a Juno return, believe it or not. And I often think planets are awakened within us or brought to our consciousness when the time's right, when they're meant to be, so to speak. And since then, I've given many talks on Juno, including one at the Astrological Association conference in 2021, in which I discussed Juno and mundane astrology using Afghanistan as the backdrop for that. And I've had several articles published, including in the Astrological Association Journal and the Medical Journal. Believe it or not, Juno has a role there too. For those of you not so familiar with Juno, Juno's an asteroid in the asteroid belt, which is between Mars and Jupiter. And it was the third asteroid discovered after Ceres and Pallas. But of course, now Ceres has been designated a dwarf planet instead of asteroid. Juno has an elliptical orbit of around 4.4 years. And because the orbit's elliptical, it can spend more time in some signs than others. It goes retrograde every 18 months or so for around 3 to 4 months at a time. So depending on the point it's at in its cycle, it can actually be in a sign for up to a year if it retrogrades. And Juno was the first asteroid for which occultation was discovered. Occultation is when one object is hidden by another that passes between it and the observer. And as you'll see, Juno is very used to things that are hidden or concealed from her. So if we talk about the mythology, and I have a beautiful artwork that has inspired me so much. It's Jupiter and Juno on Mount Ida by a French classical artist called Antoine Coypel. And I will be popping this onto my website in the next day or two. So please do go over and have a look. But Juno was a daughter of Saturn, okay? And therefore sister to Jupiter, Neptune, Pluto, Vesta, Chiron, Ceres, all of those, part of a very, very powerful dynasty. So as well as being a sister to Jupiter, she was also wife and consort. You know, as we know, these gods were incredibly incestuous, weren't they? But she was highly revered in Roman culture. You know, that there were temples and cults dedicated to her. You know, and there was many sort of shrines and temples built in prominent hubs of political and religious life in Rome. So very, very highly esteemed. If we look at some mythology to help us understand how Juno manifests in our charts, and I'm quickly going to switch here to some Greek mythology and Juno's Greek counterpart, which is Hera. Hera was absolutely enraged that she wasn't picked as the most beautiful between Athena and Aphrodite by Paris. So she joined the Greeks in the Trojan War. She then seduced Zeus, her husband, onto Mount Ida, causing him to fall asleep. And this was a pivotal point in the Trojan War because it allowed the gods to interfere and get involved, which was absolutely contrary to, you know, it went totally against the wishes of Zeus. So Juno has considerable power and political influence. She's not just a meek, compliant partner. We also have the myth of Io. You know, as we know, Jupiter was notoriously unfaithful, you know, and Juno was the long-suffering, tolerant, loyal wife. But he had an affair with Io, one of Juno's handmaidens, and Juno was incensed with rage and jealousy. Jupiter knew about this, so disguised himself as a cloud and disguised Io as a cow. But Juno saw through all of this and requested Jupiter to give her the cow as a gift. And then she put it under the watch of Argos, the giant with 100 eyes. He never closed all his eyes at once, so he always was able to see something. So Jupiter then coerced Mercury, who lulled Argus to sleep by playing his lyre, allowing Io to escape. Juno was absolutely incensed with rage again and sent a fly to bite and torment the cow Io for all eternity. So Jupiter begged for forgiveness, promised never to do it or, any of that ever again. Juno compromised and set Io free. So there's two things to think about here. One, you cannot pull the wool over Juno's eyes. She sees through everything. She sees all the realism within a relationship. There's no rose-tinted glasses with Juno. But she's also compromising too. There's always a sense of compromise, perhaps. And then, if you saw my post from Sunday where I showed all the peacocks in my office that I've been surrounded by so many times in my life, the peacock was the sacred bird of Juno. But the peacock is incredibly vain and came to Juno one day and begged Juno to give it a beautiful singing voice, just like the nightingale. And if you've ever heard the noise a peacock makes, it's quite ugly. It's like a very, very loud trumpet. So Juno just said, no, you can't have everything. You're beautiful in yourself. You've got beautiful feathers. You've got the eyes of Argus, which I placed on when he was killed. You see everything. You're beautiful. You can't have everything. So Juno doesn't tolerate pride or hubris. It's all about the realism within a relationship. So how do we apply that when we're looking at charts? Okay. So natally, it's about the realism within a relationship. It cuts through all the shit. It's all of there's no rose-tinted glasses. It's way past the honeymoon period, and it's just about the real life stuff that's within relationships. But it's about your rights within a relationship. So it's about your legal contracts. If you share a mortgage within a relationship, it's about the marriage contract. So it's about anything like that. It's about commitment, compromise, and loyalty. And anyone that's been married for many, many years or in a long-term relationship will know there is a huge amount of compromise, and forgiveness at times that's needed. It's also about the division of power in relationships. And it's about true colors. It's about revealing your true authentic self and seeing the true authentic self of your partner. Okay. And it's about protecting your rights within a relationship as well. And I go into much more detail in this in some of my articles, which I will be uploading onto my website. So Juno returns, which are like, every 4.5 years, are fascinating signposts in relationships and contracts. It's whether you're sort of renegotiating a relationship or contract or moving on into a new phase of a relationship or ending a relationship. But Juno returns are always really important signposts, as are when Juno journeys around the chart and conjoins with Venus every sort of 4.5 years. That will be a significant point in your relationships, personal, romantic, and business. Mundane astrology, it's about diplomatic agreements and contracts between businesses, between countries, financial agreements between businesses, countries, that type of thing. It's also about the rights of the people of a country or the rights of the workers within a company. Juno, Regina protected the people of Rome. So it's very much about protecting the rights of people. So whenever you look at Juno in a country's chart, it will be to some extent about the rights of the people. And like I say, I'll be putting a lot more of this on my website in the next few days. But let's return to today's conjunction, because that's what it's all about, isn't it? In Gemini, Sun conjunct Juno, it's a new cycle. And this cycle occurs every around 18 months to every 2 years, this mundane cycle. And just for interest, the last one was the 11th of January 2022 at 21 Capricorn. The one before that was the 8th of November 2020 at 16 Scorpio. So you might want to, check back at your own charts or your own diaries and see what happened then with regards to relationships. But what does it mean for us today? It's in Gemini, okay? So it's about our right to express ourselves freely in our communications. It's about free speech, okay? It's about creative expression and discussion within your relationships or your creative projects. It doesn't just have to be relationships. It could be your creative projects or endeavors. It's being able to reveal your true authentic self with your partner and also seeing your partner's true authentic self. And it's about what you want from your relationships. The sun, it's our ego, it's our identity, but it's what we want. Have a think about what you actually want from your relationships going forward. How do they serve you and your own sort of development and path through life? The sun's involved, so it could involve children, fathers, husbands, significant male figures perhaps. But it could also be about any creative writing projects you've got. It's very sort of Gemini. And just as a really, really relevant example at the minute, we think to Boris Johnson, who's, just had the very damning Partygate report. Within a day or two of that, he announced a weekly column in the Daily Mail, which is, reputed to be around £1 million a year deal. And advertising everything that he's going to talk about in this column. This Juno Sun conjunction at 28 Gemini falls right on Boris's 28-degree Sun Venus in his 9th house. No surprising he's negotiated writing a column for a headline media outlet. So you see how Juno works? It's very much about negotiating contracts and moving on into new cycles, new business relationships or new personal relationships. But it's in Gemini, and Boris will not be silenced. He will not be put down, will he? So that was Juno in a nutshell. I hope it's given you something to think about with the conjunction today. And as I said, I'm going to be uploading lots more to my website, which is leannemcafferty.com. I'm also very, very excited to announce that I'm going to be running a Juno workshop online later this summer. So please email me to register any interest, as places will be limited, but I've already had quite a lot of interest and I'm really excited about it. My email address is leanne.mcafferty@yahoo.com, but you can also contact me via my social media or direct through my website. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, please just get in touch if you have any questions or comments. Take care, everyone. Bye.